too fast, people will struggle to catch up. So if you set it for too slow, then other people who are more facile will get bored. So this is the thing you're trying to solve, right? And that is a big problem for game companies. So for digital business, that's a start, because for digital business our assignment is that you play an angel investor.
Okay.
And you're looking to invest 100 grand, or else you have to give the money to George Osborne, and no one wants to give money to George Osborne, so you need to invest it. So, and the game creation process as students, you've all got the problem of you make a game for how well you can play, and then I come along and try to assess it and die in the first 10 seconds. You see it happening all the time. And how can you set the levels so that you can play it and have fun, and I can play it and have fun. So this is what you're solving. So without further ado, Tom, welcome. Let's give him a round of applause and welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hope, as well, for inviting me in. So, as just said, my name is Tom Matcham. I'm the founder of a company called CoAdjoint, and this talk is called Personalised Gaming. That's really what I'm interested in. But really, what it's about is bootstrapping a middleware startup from practically nothing to the point where we're doing okay. I would like to think that the company has some good prospects in the future. So before we start, could I just get a raise of hands if you guys are the guys who are involved in games to start off with? So it's the vast majority, okay. But I understand that it will be on the film as well. What about digital business? Okay, so there's a couple of guys. And what about user experience design or some aspect like that? Okay. What I've tried to do is I've tried to make parts of the talk which will be interesting for everyone. It's predominantly about games, but also about the business as well. And although most of you guys appear to not be involved in digital business, you guys have got to go into the world and you've got to earn a living, and that's inherently, a business practice. So, but hopefully the insight that you might get into how I've done things might help you in your own endeavours. So, this talk is really going to be about what I've done with CoAdjoint and what we do and how we do it as well. Also, I think it would be useful for you guys to understand how things have changed as well, because it started really from, like I said, nothing, and it's progressed into something which has changed over that period of time. And also a little bit of why I think game personalisation is important and relevant in today's world of sort of mobile games, desktop games, and so on and so forth. So going back to the few things that I'll be covering, I'll be looking at a few demos of my software and their applications. What sort of motivated me to design the interfaces for my software, so that's for the user experience guys. A little bit about marketing and branding, which I knew absolutely nothing about 2 years ago, but have had to learn the hard way about it, so to speak. And also my opinions about startups and venture capital, which will be relevant for the digital business guys. So, for all you guys who perhaps think this sounds like a bit of a sales pitch, I've tried my absolute utmost to make it not sound like that. But if you are offended by the fact I'm talking about my software, then please just think about the concepts behind it and think how they could apply to your games. So probably the first question you guys are thinking is what or who is CoAdjoint? And CoAdjoint at the moment is solely me. It hasn't been that way in the past. I had some friends helping me out at first. But they've moved on to do to further education and other projects as well. But really what CoAdjoint is about is game personalisation. And if that phrase doesn't mean anything to you, hopefully the next slide will explain to you exactly what I mean by this subject. So the way that we personalise games is through middleware, which is currently available on the Unity Asset Store. And but it really at its heart, it's all sort of C and C++ code. So the interfaces are in Unity, but the software itself is widely applicable. And also we do consultancy. So we help other companies with personalising their games, and also the sort of the related area of analytics as well, but I won't really be covering that. So what exactly do I mean by game personalisation? It's something that probably speaks, I mean just the word personalisation itself will mean something to most people in this room, but what I mean by it is it's the process of making games that adapt their behaviour to accommodate the differences between users. As Hope was saying, we're used to sort of quite linear experiences in games, and we're used to games where we play at all the same rate, and it doesn't matter what you do or what you want to get out of the game, you're going to see the same interfaces, you're going to have predominantly the same experience, with a few exceptions. So, and the problem is that many people want to play games at different rates, they want to get something different out of their experience, and it's something that really hasn't been addressed by games as a whole, as of yet, in my opinion. So this is the reason why I approached this topic. It was something I was interested in, having played games that touched on this area of personalisation, such as Deus Ex, which is a game from the 2000s, I believe. And it's about recognising those differences between the users, recording them, and then sort of saying, okay, we recognise you're playing differently, let's change the game experience for you. So that's really what the company was always all about, but it didn't necessarily start like that. So I think it will be useful to explain how it all started for me. So, excuse me. So when the company started, I was a mathematics student at Imperial College London. I was doing a master's, and for all intents and purposes, my route through life was going to be academia. That's what I was interested in at the time. I was a maths student and really hadn't thought about much else. And I had an offer for a PhD, which eventually I turned down, but I'll get into that in a moment. But I also had an idea for a skill point system, or a skill measuring system, which I hadn't really seen explored in games, that I'll go through in a moment. And this was actually what I approached the sort of entrepreneurial part of Imperial about, which is called Imperial Innovations. And they said to me that they were starting a competition called IC Startup, which was specifically for teams in the university who had an idea, and they could effectively win £12,000 in venture capital. So they said, why don't you enter this competition and see how you get on? So the competition itself was about 40 teams of groups. I think I was the only individual in the whole competition, but they were all basically saying, I've got this idea for a business, what do you guys think about it? And it was probably about a 3-month process, and I worked my way through that. And what I actually pitched turned into my software, CoAdjoint Action. So this is the first piece of software that I started working on. But the seed of the idea was producing an IT startup. So the easiest way to describe what Action does is it's a skill modelling system that allows you to develop believable characters who develop in real time. So I played a lot of RPGs when I was younger, and it was probably my favourite genre of games because it allows you a little bit of personalisation. You can choose the skills that you want to do, you can build different characters. But having played games at sort of 12 years old, to the point when I was 18, when I went to university, and having come back to them when I was about 22, I hadn't seen much progress. And I thought that was really a missed opportunity. Because at the heart of a skill modelling system, what we're trying to do is we're modelling the way a character develops. And I think that's a concept that a lot of games have missed out on expanding. So I wanted to have a go at this, and I thought that my sort of training in mathematics might be helpful to produce a model that does this. So the thing that makes the model different is the fact that all skills are updated continuously in real time. So instead of when we have sort of a leveling up system in RPG games, it's kind of like in Skyrim where they do have continuous updating. Everything the user does updates the model. And then also each of the skills are modelled logistically. So what I mean by that is that it follows an S-shaped curve. So there's a period at the beginning when you're learning a skill. When it's kind of hard, there's a steep learning curve. And then there's a period of linear growth. And then as you reach an elite level, it sort of it plateaus off. So you get this S-shaped curve. But what really makes the difference between this software and other skill point systems is the fact that skills are actually related to each other. So we all know in real life that if you're a good runner, it's likely that you're going to be a good at the high jump to start with first, or you will have an advantage. They're related skills. That there's sort of a similarity in those motor patterns. But games don't really model this. They don't take this into account. So this is really what Action it really does. It's saying that if these two skills in your game are related, if you train this one, there will be an accelerated rate of growth with this one when you come to train it again. So to sort of to convey these ideas a little bit stronger, I've just got a quick demo. I have to admit that it's probably one of the ugliest demos that you're ever going to see, but I hope it gets the point across. So these are 4 skills that you might be considering. I hope you guys can see that. It's a bit.
What are they?
It's sprint, jump, match strength, so the maximum force you can apply, and speed strength. So say you're modelling a runner in a game, or some sort of sprinting mechanic or something like that. Now what we're used to in games is that if I increase my ability in match strength, so if I click on this button, which is simulating increasing experience, you see the level going up, and the same with my speed strength. But if I increase my sprint, so if I'm training my sprint, if you just look at the rate of growth in this skill, I'm clicking a lot. If I reset it and hadn't input any ability into match strength and speed strength, you see that the rate of development is exactly the same as it was before. So what Action does is it connects these skills together, because we know in real life, or perhaps in your game, you want to connect these skills together, they're related skills. So if we do the same thing again, if we increase our match strength, and then our speed strength, and then do the same again, increase the sprint, you see that there's an accelerated rate of growth. It's reached level 77 in this sort of example fairly quickly. Now, that's an exaggeration for the purposes of, of a demo, but I hope it conveys the idea behind the software. We're relating skills as they would be in real life, so that we can create these characters that evolve and develop in a kind of natural, in the way that we're used to seeing characters evolve, in real life, as I just said. So that's really the idea behind the software. I thought it would be useful as well for you guys to see the user interface in Unity. Okay.
Yeah, we do a lot of Unity here.
Okay, excellent. So as I said before, all the mathematics is in C. So if you guys use CryEngine or Unity or Unreal, then it can equally work well in that. But I decided to make the UI in Unity. So just put these. Okay. So this is, I admit, it's not the most attractive interface you're ever going to see. It does look better in the pro version of Unity, but you guys can't really see the skills. That's a shame. Okay, but basically what this is it's a set of fantasy skills in a fantasy sort of RPG game.
Okay.
So the idea behind it is that we have these skills that we want to model, and we want to model the connections between them, as we saw in the previous demo. So the user interface is just allowing you to connect up these skills.
So you've got heart. Just
heat,
maybe
heal burns. This is flamethrower, fireball, a skill called generate fire, inferno, and fireball. So the idea is, in an RPG game where you're sort of considering fire skills, these are things that you might want to consider for your game. So the task is to create an editor for creating a network of connected skills. So that's effectively what I've tried to do. And the other thing I want to do with the editor is make sure that you didn't have to touch any of the math behind it at all. A designer could hopefully use the software and design their networks.
So, are you going to tell us how we use it? Because we could,
sure.
Yeah.
So the way you use it is you create a new skill. So I don't know, what's the name for a fire skill? I'll just call it fire. And then I won't go into details of what the parameters here. These say Q, B, and V, which is parameters which you have to set. You set these actually up graphically as well. So, and then what you do is you say, okay, I'm interested in the fire skill. I'm going to determine the sort of the learning curve. So I told you about the sort of S-shaped curve. You do that all graphically as well. And then say, I want to connect this skill up. Then you just connect it up. You just press a shortcut on your keyboard and it will set up the relationship. These numbers here are the strengths of the relationships. So you can have one-way relationships or you can have two-way relationships. So one skill might affect the other, but not vice versa. Or you can have relationships where both skills affect each other.
So for example, if in the game you have to throw flames and you also have to throw grenades, then if you're throwing, and then maybe another thing is you're jumping or something, but if you choose to throw grenades and flames, then you should get better. Using this software, you will get better at both of them.
Yeah, basically, you don't get better immediately, it's an accelerated rate of growth. So, like in real life, if you train something which is related, you don't immediately get better. You have to improve, but you grow faster.
Exponentially. Almost exponentially,
yeah. So that's really the idea behind the software. I didn't want it to make it mathematically involved at all. And then what you do is you build this sort of network here into a DLL, which you then use in your Unity games. Like in the example that I saw, that was using a network that was built in this and then was used in an application. So that's a quick run through of Action. I just wanted to mention a few benefits, I think, of the software, or mainly the idea behind the software, actually. Because what I'm really trying to do is map the way that the user is playing to their character. So when a model is being updated continuously, and we have sort of a pseudo-realistic model of someone's skills, then we have a pretty good measure of the way that a user is actually interacting with the game. So in most games, there's quite a disconnect between the way that you're playing and the way the game says you're playing. It's possible to sort of almost cheat and act in one way and you get a different result. Or it might just be bad game design. So the idea behind the model is to say, let's make it almost a one-to-one matching between the way you're playing and the way your character is playing. And the result of that is that it's like you're reducing the distance between your character and you. It allows you to connect better with your character because you can see in front of you that your character is changing in the way that you're actually asking it to. So that's really what I think the main benefit of the software is. So anyway, so back to where we were with IC Startup. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the, I think, 4 or 5 winning teams from that, which I was extremely happy about, and I felt very lucky to have got through that process. It was greatly beneficial for me because having started with absolutely no business knowledge, I was able to meet a lot of good mentors, people who knew about business, who'd run digital businesses, and I certainly gained a lot from that experience. However, I actually turned down the offer of the VC. I turned down the £12,000 that I was guaranteed. And that might seem kind of strange, considering that it seemed like the whole point of the competition was to get the money. But in the next slide, I'll go into the reasons why I didn't do that. That's not to say that I disagree with venture capital at all, and I will discuss this in a moment, but for the place I was at the time, that's what I thought was right for me. However, having said that, I still maintain a very good relationship with Imperial Innovations, and they've been extremely helpful after the event, and I'm actually hopefully going to see some of them later on today. So I just want to explain very quickly why I actually turned down the offer of the venture capital. And the first reason why is that I didn't know if the terms of the VC were actually right for me. Now, this was the first time the competition has been run. It's actually called something a bit different now. It's called Create Lab. But the actual terms of the money were quite uncertain. It wasn't clear to me exactly how much of my company I would be giving away. And that was obviously a major concern, because I was going to be given this sort of lump sum to develop my company, which was great. But I didn't know if I'd end up losing 5% of my company, 10 or 30. And I actually had a lawyer check this for me, and they agreed that the terms were pretty much worthless. So to put myself in that position, just come out of university with having won this competition was quite scary, and I wanted to, I wasn't so sure if that was really something that I wanted to get involved in straight away. The other thing to consider was that, do venture capitalists, the guys who are giving you the money, do they have the same plan as I do? Now, with a startup, the idea is that you have some idea, you want to develop it to a point where it's either profitable or shows some sign of having some worth. And then the whole point is to get an exit. That's really what investors are looking for. They want you to sell on your business so they get a return on their investment. Now, the position I was in at the time, I didn't know if that was really what I wanted to do. I felt that there was opportunities to grow a company and to develop more of an old-fashioned company from the ground up, and take this idea that I had with Action and maybe explore other avenues, which fortunately I have actually gone on to do, I hope. So that's not to say that it's bad to go with venture capitalists and to get investment, because if you guys have a game idea and, for example, an incubator gives you the opportunity to make that game, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for you. It's in a completely different position to what I am. If you get investment for a game, you're going to make the game, which you might have to change a small amount, but you're going to make your game effectively in the end. And then hopefully if it works, then you will profit. If it doesn't, then someone else is backing your game for you. It was a slightly different position for me, and that's the reason why I like to make a sort of distinction between VC for games and VC for sort of middleware. And the last point I considered, which I perhaps have changed my mind on a little bit at the time, was I sort of was questioning myself if money was the key to this project. And the reason why is because my position at the time was saying, okay, well, I can program a little bit. I've done it at university. I'm sure I can at least have a go at doing this myself. What's the problem with me just sort of developing this software and then releasing it? And that was perhaps a little bit naive. But at the time, I wasn't sure if getting that money and giving away part of my company with uncertain terms was necessary, given the fact that I could do most of this work myself and invest in the branding and marketing and hopefully get the company off the ground. So that was the reason why I did it. And like I said, I wouldn't like to say that for everyone. It's not a blanket term. I'm not criticising the structure of startups or angel investment and things like that. I'm just saying that you guys, you have to, whatever position you're in, you have to really ask yourself if this is the right thing for me or the right thing for my company. So, having turned down the investment, I now didn't have any source of income, and I had an idea which I wanted to develop. Fortunately for me, I had very understanding parents who said, if you come home and cook dinner and do a bit of cleaning and hoovering and that sort of stuff, then feel free to live at home rent-free, which was obviously very generous. So I basically went home and I started to develop Action. But whilst I was developing Action, I was sort of thinking about the data that Action was producing and realised that there might actually be an opportunity to produce something more interesting with the data that Action was producing. And that turned into my second piece of software, which is called CoAdjoint Orbit. So CoAdjoint Orbit is all about changing the behaviour of your game based on the playstyle of the user. So maybe you can already start to see how this is tying with Action. But what Action is doing is we're collecting information about the way that the user is playing a game. And although that's really good if you just want to use it as a skill point system, it's also a useful source of metadata about the user themselves and what their preferences are, what their strengths and weaknesses are in your game, how fast they're developing. So what I wanted to do is take that information and then use it actually in a game to improve the performance and the actual playability of the game. So the way I went about this was using a topic of computer science called machine learning, which is all about training programs to interpret and understand data. So it uses a machine learning algorithm to train the game to understand what data about the user means. And then what that actually produces is a classification, which is just simply saying, I think the user is in one of these 3 classes, and that's what the Orbit actually outputs at the end. Now, in the process of developing the software, I realized that it didn't just have to work with data from action. It could work with data from any skill point system or any sort of set of numbers. As long as it's a set of numbers and you have an idea of what that data means, then it will work with Orbit as well. So I think the most natural thing to do at the time now would be to show you an application of this. So, oh, that's the wrong scene. Apologise. So this is a sort of demo that I was working on called Apotheosis. It's a fantasy RPG game, and it's a turn-based fantasy RPG game. And basically, you're playing this girl here, and you are fighting this skeleton here. Now, what makes this game different is that the behaviour of this skeleton will actually adapt and change dependent upon the way that you're playing the game. So, if I'm attacking and defending in a particular way, he will change his own tactics and strategy to better combat you, or to provide a better challenge, or to provide a game which is more suited for the areas that you're interested in. So, to make this simple, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the skeleton attack me, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dodge his attacks. So he's mainly going to be standing in the centre, flailing around a bit, and I'm going to try and dodge his attacks. I'm then going to skip the bit where I attack him just for simplicity. And then what will happen is that there will be a GUI in the bottom of the screen that will tell you what he thinks my classification is, i.e. Orbit is telling me, how is this guy playing? And hopefully, if I do the right thing, it will say that he's dodging a lot. So therefore, I'm going to move around more as an AI enemy to try and catch him, to personalise the game to the challenge that the user is providing. So let's see if I manage to do that. Can you see? You can see the GUI in the bottom, I hope. Just about. Okay. So I'm dodging around. I'm playing my own game awfully, but it's standard. So that was his turn, and he's now collected data about the way I was playing. Let's skip to his turn again, and you can see that he's detected that I was moving around more, so now he's going to move around with every single move he does to try and catch me dodging. So a pretty trivial example of the system in action, but I hope you guys can see how this could generalize to other systems. Or just in this game, if I had a sort of spells or something like that, and I was specialising in fire spells or ice spells, he could change his armour so that it would better suit that, or he might put a spell around him himself, or he might automatically change the difficulty as another application, which we'll be going through in a moment. So very quickly, let's just have a look at the same interface. The Orbit UI in Unity. Okay. So again, I agree it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but my goal with all the user experience, the user interfaces for all my software, is to make sure that designers can use the software. So that you don't need to understand anything about machine learning to use the software. So the way that you actually use it is that you decide what you want to make adaptive in your game, and then you decide upon the skills that you want to use to measure the performance of the user, just as we did in action. These are the same skills that we saw in the previous example with the fire skills, but I apologise because you can't see this, but these skills here are the more aggressive skills, the more offensive skills, and these are the more defensive skills. So a potential goal of this example could be, I want to detect if the player is being aggressive or he's being defensive, so that I can change the behaviour of the AI to challenge him more, or perhaps just generally change the behaviour of the way that, of the AI, how the AI is playing. So you set up your skills, and then we have to train the machine learning algorithm. And the way that's done is with this interface here. So we have the same skills presented in the same layout as they were a moment ago with the sort of the boxes. But what we're doing here is Orbit is saying to me, here's a user who has these particular levels in these skills. They're normalized between 0 and 100. Now, if you were presented with these skills, is this guy attacking? Is he a defensive player? Or is he somewhere mixed between the two? So let's take a look at this example. The skills on the right-hand side here are higher than the skills on the left-hand side. And these are the defensive skills. So I would give it the Orbit, I would say this is a defensive player. And equally, let's get an attacking example. So in this example, the skills on the left-hand side, which are the offensive skills or attacking skills, are higher. So I tell Orbit that it's an attacking player. Now, what's fantastic about machine learning is that if I do this enough, it will learn to do this automatically itself. So just by giving it these examples, so it's almost like a gamification of the training process. It's saying, here's your task to do. The end result is that, the goal of the game is to train the machine learning algorithm to perform well. Off you go. So that's how I tried to tackle the problem of taking a quite complicated mathematical problem and making it easy enough for designers to use. So just quickly going through a number of the benefits, I think, of a system like this. Not necessarily my system, but any system which was offering an adaptive AI system. What we're really trying to do is personalize that gaming experience, as I've mentioned a number of times before. But the main goal of this is to increase retention. Because by personalizing a game, you're making a game which intrinsically cares or is more attractive to the user. And having a more attractive proposition to a user is going to increase the retention than if you had no personalization in it at all. So it's offering greater retention and greater engagement. And also, this system actually can help you, the software can help you create some fairly complex AI systems. I've got some videos online showing creating complex morality models, so where actual AI don't just say you're good or bad. There are factors in between. You can be good in some respects, but you could be a liar. You can model these sort of things with Orbit. You can tackle adaptive difficulties, as Hope was saying earlier on. So it can take away a lot of the legwork behind creating these systems yourselves, and it just reduces it down to a user interface. So I spent about a year of my life developing Action, Orbit, a combination of the two, which is called the software bundle, which allows you to take the data from Action and use it in Orbit. And I then basically, through that period of time, I had a small amount of presence on forums, and I had a YouTube channel which didn't have very many subscribers at all, but some people were paying attention. And then I came to releasing the software, and of course, as you can imagine, no one really cared, because no one knew about it, and no one was convinced by it. So it was basically a series of mistakes, and it's naivety on my part to assume that, and it's a classic business mistake, right? You hear about it all the time, that people just release software and assume, and games especially, and assume that people will just flock to them and find them. So that was a big mistake, and to be honest, I'm kind of lucky to be in the position I am now. That the company didn't go under or anything like that. If I had debtors, it might have done. So retrospectively, this is what I should have done. I should have released something much quicker. I didn't have to make user interfaces in Unity to test out whether the software worked and if people liked the software. What I should have done is I should have gone on forums after I had the maths done, and I said, hey, here's something for free, give it a try. If you make something, please get in touch. And then I could have got some feedback straight away. There are people out there who don't need user interfaces to use software. So that's what I really should have done, I think. And then I could have got feedback. And if I had got good feedback, then it could have given me direction in the creation of the software. It could have given me something to go to media to. So to say, hey, I've got this idea for software and someone's already built something with it. And this is proof that it works and that it might be a good idea. That, do you guys want to do an article on it or whatever? It might have made it easier to get media interest. And the other last point that I should have done is that I should have started measuring people's interest from the off to actually get numbers on how interested people were in the software. Because otherwise you're just guessing. You might get a good post on a forum, but does that really mean that person's going to convert and buy my software? It probably doesn't. But if you have things like a mailing list or maybe pre-orders, even something like that, then that gives you a figure of how much people are interested, how much people are following your progress of development. So there's some things that I would have done, I really should have done differently. Now, something that I really didn't touch too much in that whole process was the branding of the company. And the reason why is because it seemed like a bit of a dirty word. Coming from sort of a mathematics, programming background, gaming background, I didn't know anything about branding, and I didn't realise the importance of it until you've actually got software out there, which again was naive. But branding really means just presenting a clear and consistent message to your potential customers about what problem you're actually solving, and how it offers a shortcut to those users from getting where they are now to where they want to be. So with jeans companies, what they're offering is they're saying, you're who you are now, if you buy our jeans, you will be cooler, you will be a better person. That's what they're trying to sell you. The same with your game, you're saying, if you play my game, you're going to have a better life than you did before. You're going to be having more fun than you were before. And that's what you've got to get across with a brand message. It's not just a bunch of symbols, it's not just your logo. It's absolutely crucial to the success of selling software. So with my software, the message, I sort of had to determine what the message was behind all of my pieces of software. And I had a feeling of what it was just as I was working on the software itself. But if you take something like Action, it's about representing the user's behavior accurately. And with Orbit, it's about adapting the game behavior. And this is where the concept of game personalization comes from. Now, although the games guys here might be thinking, what a load of rubbish, really, I actually believe that this is not a load of rubbish. This is actually the idea behind the software. And I'm not lying when I tell people that I think I'm working on game personalization. It's something that resonates with me, and it hopefully resonates with the presentation of the software as well. So in terms of what I'm offering to developers, what I'm trying to say is that my software will help you bridge the gap between you and your users. It will help you create a custom experience for your users. But really, the key information, the promise that I'm giving them, is that I'm going to help you improve the retention in your game and the engagement in your game. And that's really the promise that I'm presenting with my website, my presentation on the UT Asset Store, all those other aspects. So that pretty much brings us up to date. But I'd like to spend just a little bit of time talking about what hopefully the future of the company holds. And something I've noticed from working with a couple of companies over the last few months is that personalization is actually gaining in popularity. It's a topic which games companies are talking about and considering it. There's a book about game analytics which was released 2 years ago where they interviewed, I think it was the CTO from Zynga, who when asked what the future of gaming was, he said personalization. So companies like Zynga are thinking about this concept. And so what I wanted to do next, and what I am planning on doing next, is I wanted to help reach a wider audience with this idea, not necessarily to make money, but just to present games developers that personalization will actually help you make better games, so that I can play better games. And the way I wanted to do this was to produce a new piece of software which would be super focused and also be released for free. And that turned into my software Flow, or what will be my software Flow. And Flow will basically be, as I mentioned, a free dynamic difficulty adjustment plugin for Unity. So, have you guys, before I continue, if you guys have played the game Left 4 Dead, have any of you guys played Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2? Yeah. Do you guys know about the AI director in Left 4 Dead? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, what the AI director was doing in Left 4 Dead is it was recording your performance if you were using a lot of medkits, if you were getting killed a lot. And basically what it did from there is it said, okay, you're struggling, so we're going to give you more medkits, we're going to spawn less bosses, less zombies, and if you're doing well, it's going to spawn more, and you get the idea. So what I was trying to do with this was to generalize this idea so that these adaptive difficulty systems could work with potentially any game. So this is a demo that I produced to try and show this off. So I'm going to play this guy here, who some of you might recognize as the guy from Angry Bots. He's called Scuba Dude. And basically the goal of this demo is to get to the red thing here, which you can sort of barely see, or it's to kill the bots. So notice that there are 2 bots here at the moment. When I play, there's only 1, because the game has no information about the way I'm playing. So it's just going to put me on the easiest difficulty setting. Now, I completed the game pretty quickly there. I didn't have any problems. So the game was recording my performance during that round. It was recording how stealthy I was, how fast my speed in completing the level, and how good at combat I was. So it's considered all of those factors, and it's come to the conclusion, using a similar system to Orbit, that I actually need to be bumped up to hard difficulty. So now we see that there are 2 bots, and their range of hearing, and their field of view, and their range of sight has actually increased as well. So you can see that immediately I've been detected, and there you go, I blew up. So because I performed so badly in that last round, it's taken an average of my performance in those 2 rounds and then classified that vector and said, okay, you're probably not ready for hard mode yet. Let's put you up to medium. Put you down to medium, sorry. So hopefully you get the idea that it's recording the performance of the user and then adapting the difficulty as you go along. And there's absolutely no need for this to be done just at the end of a level. This could be done every second if you wanted it to. So you can be constantly updating the difficulty. You might not want to do that, but you can, certainly.
How would you factor that in then, if you had someone who'd achieved who died on a level, complete the level before. So clearly they can't do that next level. So you're saying that they'd have to repeat that level again, but the factor would be, instead of being still maybe level 3, it wouldn't be hard level 3, it would be medium.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the way I've tried to design the software is to make it so that a designer can do whatever they want with the feedback. It's just saying that with the user's performance, this is what we recommend that the difficulty should be. And you might want to do something more complex than that. You might want to do it so that you increase, for the next level, you increase the number of health drops or something like that, or you increase the number of power-ups they get. It can be whatever the designer or developer wants to do.
How does that balance against the difficulty of what the level is designed for? If you're giving more support, you're not going into sub-levels within that overall level.
Again, I think I see what you're saying in that it might seem like you are actually completing a different level, but I think the goal of a game is simply to make someone enjoy it. And if a designer wants to be sort of boxed in the fact that I want my level to perform like this, then the system is perhaps not crucial for them. But if they want to make it so that people who are struggling get an extra help and can progress through a story, for example, then that would be a potential use of it. It could be another use I've had sort of suggested to me was in tutorials. So if someone was struggling through a tutorial, then it can help them automatically to adjust to do something like that.
You were talking about cheating. Now somebody could actually cheat with this current system which you just showed.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So that they could perform easily.
Pretend to be bad and then have an upper hand.
That's true, but in a single player game, is that fun? If that's the end goal of your game so that you can cheat, I mean, you can cheat anyway. There's no problem. People can cheat quite easily anyway.
I'm just trying to understand, you were talking about overcoming cheating. So.
Did I?
Yeah, you started with saying that you're creating designs to sort of get better involvement of the player in the game, and so cheating gets reduced.
I don't think I meant to say that. I don't have any stance on cheating whatsoever. It's more just about the whole idea about the software is connecting better with the user. It's not about cheating. So, is there any other questions, by the way? I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so with this new piece of software, I'm trying to rectify some of the mistakes that I made with my previous software. And the first thing I'm trying to do first is I'm ascertaining firsthand if there are people who are interested in this concept. So what I've done is I've produced a video on YouTube showing the demo I just showed you in action, and I have started a mailing list as well to gauge if people are actually interested in this topic. And I'm actually quantifying, and I have goals of where I want to be before I actually start developing this piece of software. And I sort of touched on this a moment ago, but again, it's about sort of getting the market first, ascertaining if there is a market, and then measuring their interest in a particular topic. So in the exact same way in games, you might want to make a perfect game, or your perfect game, but if you go and release this and you spend a year of your life making that game and no one cares about it, it's heartbreaking, it's destroying. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. And then the other thing that I've done is I've tried to present a clear, hopefully attractive message about what the software can do. So Action and Orbit are quite generic. They allow for a lot of different possibilities. With Flow, what I'm trying to do is sort of have a laser sharp focus on what this piece of software does. It does automatic difficulty adjustment and nothing else. And then, hopefully by releasing it for free, it means that people can be exposed to the concepts behind it, and perhaps if necessary, work on these ideas themselves, build up an interest in the topic overall, in the subject overall, and yeah.
How much does it cost?
Flow, this piece of software, it's going to be free. It's not released yet, but it will be free. It's not out yet. I'm still judging whether or not it's something that is worthwhile to do. Like I'm saying, measuring. So to just finish up, I just wanted to say overall to conclude the lessons that I've learned from this process. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and it's got to the stage where, as I said in the introduction, I can certainly make a living out of what I'm doing. And it wasn't necessarily clear cut if that was going to be the case. So the one thing that I'd like you to take home with you is that a good idea is just simply not enough, especially in a digital marketplace, and if you are starting from scratch with nothing. I've been extremely lucky in that it has turned out that the software I was developing was of interest to some people. But if that wasn't the case, I would have spent a lot of my time working on something which no one really cared about. And that's something which we all want to avoid. So it's really important to make sure that you measure and that you test, and before you dive into creating a fully fledged product. You create a vertical slice of a game beforehand, and then you just give it out to all your friends for free. You start a media campaign. It's just as important as the actual development itself. And I know for a fact that I would rather be developing than posting on Twitter or trying to, cold emailing people, but it's a vital part of the process if you don't want your effort to be wasted. And absolutely the same thing applies for games. But at the same time, I would stress that it's really important to be patient as well, especially if you're developing a game or a new idea, which doesn't necessarily have anything in the past. Most of my ideas were based on RPGs and systems, but it's new technology. I'm not iterating upon something else. I'm trying to persuade people that this is a good idea. And so it requires a certain amount of patience in order to do so. And I feel very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to get to the stage where I am. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. If you'd like to check out my software, then it's available in the Unity Asset Store now. I have some demos out as well, things that you can try out, some example projects. All of the example projects that you saw on here will be available on the web. I can link that on your course page or something as well. If you would like to use this in your projects, then I seriously suggest that you get onto your course managers. But if you want to ask me any questions about your games, then you can email me. I'm hoping to hang around for a little while as well. If you guys want to just have a chat with me, I'd be more than happy to talk about your projects and such. And if you want more information just in general about the company, we have a website. So thank you very much for listening, guys.
How much is it on the Unity Asset Store?
It's $100 each.
Okay, dollars.
Yes, $100.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay. We have the Pro. Yeah. We'd have to do a license, wouldn't we? That'd be really interesting to try out. Yes. Tom, do you know how we could, if we bought a couple, how that would work with Unity in here? Would it just be like in a couple of machines? Is that the way it would? Yeah? It's for who? Oh, people at a higher pay grade than you mean? Yeah, right, okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions?
Are there any questions that you want to ask at this? Do I see a hand, or is it just yawning? Okay, stretching, not yawning, stretching. Yes. Thank you very much, Tom. This is really very, very interesting. I have a game I want to talk to you about, so do hang around. Penny, yeah, Victoria, you got something?
Yeah, I just had an interesting question. You said there that your future you're focusing on the next product, which was Flow, which was going to be for free.
Yeah.
And is that a long-term thing that's going to be free, or is that just to tempt people?
No, forever. I want to make it free forever. Like I said, I want to expose people to this idea because I think it benefits game as a whole. I'm a gamer. I want to see better games being produced. So, yeah, it's for forever.
And what's your business plan for yourself to generate income in the future?
At the moment, the main way I generate income is consultancy. And then I'm hoping to invest more money in things like trade shows, for example, to expose people to my middleware, for example, as well. And maybe just expand a little bit and then take on more work and hopefully get these ideas a bit more popular would be the plan. Yeah.
Anyone else with any questions? No? Okay, thank you. That was very interesting. Yes. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yes. Good.